A very warm welcome to everyone. Hi, this is Shashwat DC from Azim Premji University, and I welcome you all yet again to another series of nature writing for children. Over the past year and more, we have been doing this series quite popularly on our YouTube channel and engaging a whole lot of audiences, right from young adults, children, to parents, to teachers, and everyone. And we have the kind of response we have got is fairly surprising, in the sense that when we started this series, we were not very sure how many nature writing books are there in India, what is the strength of this genre in India, and how many publications that would be there. It has been over a year now, the 13th or 14th edition that we are running on right now, and every time we are discovering new books, new authors, new wonderful vistas of prose, poetry, and beautiful things. And there's this realization that writing for nature, while it might not be particularly as a genre a lot of authors might be following, but they have been doing it for a long period of time. And it doesn't come as a surprise, because if you look at the Indian ethos, there's a lot of sensitivity towards nature within us that has been imbued over over long centuries that we have. And possibly digging deep into those ethos, lots of these authors have been doing writing on this subject by themselves, without any conscious attempt to to cater to a particular genre or to a particular audience per se. So today we are very happy and glad to have someone who has been doing writing on nature for a long period of time. She has written almost 30 books on nature. She has she's been awarded numerous, she has received numerous accolades and awards, and she has written a whole scores of books which talk about nature in very interesting perspectives. So we have with us Katie Bagli, and warm welcome to you, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shashwat. And I would also like to thank Professor Harini, because it was her brainchild to have this kind of genre about nature writing for children. I would like to thank the entire team of Azim Premji University, and thank you, Chandrima for coming here to have this conversation. So I look forward to this, and a warm welcome to everyone. A good evening. Let's look forward to having a lovely time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Katie. And every time we have an author here, we also have a very interesting personality to have a conversation with these authors. So today we are very lucky to have with us Chandrima Home, who is an alumnus of A3. She works as a research grant officer at the Indian Institute of Science, and she's done her PhD as well on a very interesting subject on praise and snow leopards. She has spent a lot of time in Lahore Spiti and all these wonderful places. So thank you so much, Chandrima, for agreeing to host this session for us.
Thank you, Shashwat. Thanks. It's really a pleasure meeting Katie and reading her book as well. So, without further much ado, I think we can just start off with our discussion as well. So, what we are talking about today are largely these two books. I would just like to showcase it for all the audience here. Sorry. So, this is
Yes.
the On the Wild Side and Grrrs and
The
Hisses.
Girls and Hisses,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Just
think
just
there's
one
some.
pointer to everyone. This is the second time we are this session promises to be very interesting, because it's a second session that we are having on poetry per se. The last one we had was Ken Nesbitt, but he was a poet who wrote incidentally about nature. Now we have someone who writes on nature and has taken poetry as a medium of instruction. So with that ado, I will hand over the stage to you, Chandrima. Just one small note for our viewers: if you have any questions or comments which you want to pose it to Katie, you can put it in the live chat box. Possibly towards the end of the program, if you have time, we'll definitely take them up. Thank you so much, and the stage is yours, Chandrima.
Thank you, Shashwat. Okay, so nice to see you, Katie. And I just wanted to start off with one basic question for you for the beginning as of for now. Like you've published so many books, almost close to 30 books. You've had prose and you've written poetry. So I just wanted to know, especially for these two books, why did you choose this particular medium as as a symbol of awareness for children? And how difficult has it been for you to switch between prose and poetry across all the books that you have published till date?
Well, let me tell you this. Um, First of all, I began writing for children. My very first book was in 2012. And all those books, there was a series of 6 books. That was my first series of 6 books, Nature's Delight. They were mainly prose, but just to break the monotony for the children, for the readers, I also kept, even in those books, I would keep a poem or a skit in between, with the characters, maybe animals or trees. And so it wasn't really difficult to switch over from prose to poetry. In fact, I find poetry is fun because it adds so much charm to English language. You can play around with words, you can interchange phrases, and I think it's a wonderful way to impress what you want to say to children. And poetry involves a lot of creativity, which everyone has, because I've had a number of workshops with children, poetry workshops. And I just read a few poems to inspire them. And there they are. They come out with, unimaginable imagination and creativity. So it's fun. Once you start writing, it's like a stream. I always tell the children. It keeps flowing. So the poem also keeps flowing. So that's why. Now the story about On the Wild Side, it's a very funny story. I can tell you.
Yes, please. We want to hear it.
Because I was recouping from a surgery, you know. I had a knee surgery, and of course, initially it's a little painful to sit at the table and type. So I would be sitting in my bed, and to while away the time, take a notebook and scribble some poems, and that's how On the Wild Side was born. So that's why if you see, it is mainly all real life experiences which I've just written in the form of poems for the book On the Wild Side.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. For Grrrs To Hisses, actually, my friend Dr. Paramita approached me because I've co-authored with her. She, in fact, said, I would like to write a book of poetry with you. So I said, why not climate change? That's the latest and the most hot topic. So there we were. So that's how we began writing this.
So, when it came to, say, like a book on Gurrs and Hisses, which is largely about climate change, you think that the prolonged 1.5 year of the way our lives had changed during the pandemic, did it have something to do with that? I mean, if I look at the publication timing for this book, it was released in August 2021. And I don't know when you started working on this book, but I was just curious to know whether this was more like a pandemic baby for you, this
It
particular
was,
book. It
yes,
was okay.
it was a pandemic baby. The idea was conceived a little before the pandemic, but then, of course, the whole process of writing was during the pandemic. And I feel we wrote on this topic, particular topic about climate change, because it is something children definitely need to be aware of, because they are going to carry out the torch, further for us. They are the green ambassadors for our planet, and definitely they need to be aware. And many schools, this is not a topic that they discuss. I found so children need to know about it definitely. And of course now, as as the days go by, it's becoming more and more of a reality. There are floods everywhere. Every day you see on the television, a flood over here, or a big spell of rain somewhere, or something or the other, all the effects of climate change. So definitely this is the most important topic children need to know about.
Yeah, if I look at this particular book, I mean, there has been a lot of topics that you have covered, starting from, the global gases, CO2 gases, the impacts on the environment, or even things like carbon footprint. So I was just thinking about what was going on in your mind in terms of the process when you had to, like, convey some of these really hard things that even sometimes adults find it difficult to understand, to put it in front of kids. So what new things did you do, or how did you kind of try to process it in terms of the way you would want to put it for the kids?
So if you see in my poem, Global Warming No More, for example, to make it sound simple for the children and more understandable, and made it like a debate between planet Earth and carbon dioxide. So even also the other one about the sea levels rising. It's called, one second, I forget the title. 1 minute, just 1 minute. It's about when there is one on when nature got annoyed. That also to
Yes.
show how everything is more frequent now. The erratic weather, the cyclones, the storms, they're more frequent and more intense. Why? Because nature is annoyed. That is the way to read the minds of the children and make them understand it. Then, of course, if you see, some of the poems are like songs to popular
Yes.
music. Yeah. And
Especially Imagine a Better World. I think I was actually humming it in my mind as well when I was reading the poem as well. So,
and
yeah.
I wanted to tell you about the battle of land and sea, how land and sea argue with each other and have a debate also with each other. So, this makes it easier. In fact, this particular poem, The Battle of Land and Sea, I have made my group of children, my students of creative writing class,
Oh,
enact it for the Kalagora festival.
wow.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
is so nice.
Right. So
Yeah.
the children can actually perform this as kids and can get more involved into such matters.
Yeah, I
That's
guess that entire process also helps them to understand these concepts so much better.
exactly
Like when you're
right.
enacting it, when you're using puppets, when you're using other kinds of
Yes,
tools, I think it makes
correct.
them also, understand some of these very hard concepts that we ourselves also find it difficult. We should also be
Yes,
doing the same, I think.
I think so. Yes,
Yeah. So, one of the important things that I saw in both these books was the fact that, you've taken a lot of pains in illustrating it. These are all your illustrations, if I'm not
yes,
mistaken. I think that struck me really hard. I know most people who write books, they have illustrators who, do these things for them. And if you are looking at any book which is for kids, I mean, art is the way you portray some of these images, they have to be very, very powerful for them. So I was just thinking that, what happens when you're in the process of creating a book such as this. Do you illustrate first, or the writing comes in first, or how is it that, or does it happen simultaneously, or is it something more spontaneous when it comes to putting across the illustrations in some of these books?
no, actually, it's like this. First, the idea comes, and then it gets developed, and then comes the story or the poem, and the illustrations come much later.
Okay.
So, yeah, but because by then I know exactly what is happening in the story. So I represent that through my illustrations. And as a writer, I know my work best. I know what I want to convey to the others, to the readers. So, with that point of view, I illustrate. Whereas if it were another illustrator who may not be so involved into the subject, you know, it may be difficult, I feel, to
Right.
show what is really in the mind of the writer.
So, and when you're making these illustrations, I would just like to know, are these like, do you initiate them as like the rough sketches in your this thing, and it gets
Yes,
a little more refined, or is it like like it's like
definitely.
a proper session
See,
of even drawing it out?
no. I'm not a professional illustrator, nor have I been trained in this subject. But it just comes for the joy of it, I should say. And of course, I do erase very often. I have an eraser by my side all the while. I keep doing it again and again till I'm sure it's perfect. But then it somehow, the final picture gives me a lot of fulfillment. Actually, it's very therapeutic while you're illustrating or painting or coloring. I find that really very fulfilling. It gives me great
Absolutely.
joy. It is also a form of creativity if you go to see.
Right.
illustrate.
And when you're doing some of these sessions with the children, when you're in nature camps with them, when you're using
Yeah.
you have your books along with you as well, which you are sharing the stories and everything, along with a lot of this, say like poetry or writing. Are there illustrations also that the kids do in some of these camps, or is it mostly a lot of enacting things and stuff like that, or is it a combination of different things that they do?
It is a combination. There are various things we do during these workshops. In fact, sometimes my children, I give them ideas, creativity from nature. That's the kind of workshop I have once held.
Okay.
So, giving them the facts, reading about them, what happened, some bizarre, interesting facts, maybe about an ant forming a garden inside its underground house. So, after telling them all about it, maybe they draw a cartoon, some doodling with nature, or maybe even create comic strips. I have made them do. So, they have a lot of fun doing it, you know and otherwise also sometimes they just draw the characters they like most, but usually cartoons or comic strips, they have a lot of fun doing it.
Wow, that's nice. So, I mean, a lot of the poems that you have, I was just very curious because some of them I really, really loved it. Especially, I mean, I wanted to read out a couple of them as well, and over a period of time. But one thing I wanted to know was the fact that there are these characters in your poems as well. Are these real life characters? I was very curious to know whether Mr. Prithvi really existed, who kind of resurrected a Karanji tree, or was there a Sunjoy who was very fond of a silk cotton tree? So, I mean, how many of these the things that the poems that you have written actually are stories put to life by you, which are actually real experiences?
Quite a few of them are real character. I mean, of course, I've changed the names and things. See, Mr. Prithvi wasn't the character, but the tree, the current tree, it was a real life character. I used to see this tree. I used to see the tree, and I would think now it's not. Any day it's going to die. Any day the BMC people will come and hack it off and plant another one. And it was really a miracle to see it survive. In fact, revive. So I imagine that there would be a Mr. Prithvi coming along, taking care of it. In fact, it is true that I had to actually avert my eyes every time I passed by that particular currant tree because it looked so pathetic. I just didn't have the heart to look at it. And then when I suddenly saw it in full bloom one day with the green leaves and the little buds of flowers, this just shows nature can, fascinate us and surprise us in so many ways. Then there was the about the blue whale, the story
Yes, I
about
think
the blue
that
whale.
was something which I really, really enjoyed because there was so much of emotions coming out of that poem. There was empathy, there was people taking decisions. It was a human animal interaction put in a space where you could see empathy, you could see solving a problem, you could see so many things, you could see a habitat, a landscape, you could visualize everything in that. So it was something that I really enjoyed reading that poem.
Yes, that poem is from the book On the Wild Side.
Yes.
And that I wrote that poem actually after reading a newspaper report. So it was a fact that a blue whale had got washed ashore somewhere near Alibag. And I was surprised when I read that the villagers offered their saris to make a soft rope for the whale. Otherwise, the rope would have cut into its belly because of its weight. So that is another case. Then, if you see my poem about tigers in the forest in the same book, the case of Philly who lost his beret. Actually, Philly was my brother. He was with me in
Okay.
Ranthambore. This actually happened. Everyone was so excited seeing the tiger, and in all that excitement, his beret fell down, and we had to, of course, drive away. We couldn't just get down and pick it up. The tiger was there with her cubs. But later on, we reversed the jeep and we did pick it up. So that part which I've mentioned in the poem is not true, the last bit. And we left it behind for the cubs to play with because you're not allowed to leave things like that in the
Things like
jungle,
that.
which is unnatural anyway. So, yeah, there are many such cases in my story. There was one about strange sounds in the forest. I don't know if you read that. It was, we were walking through the forest in Goa and very silent, no one else. And suddenly you hear this very, very funny kind of sound. Can't decide whether it is a puppy cackling away, whining away, or what could it be? It sounded so unnatural. It didn't sound like an animal, it didn't sound like a human. But we kept walking. In fact, we even started getting goosebumps. And then we actually saw it was a hornbill falling out. It was such a surprise. So, so these were incidents based on true characters, and many of the characters are myself. Like
Wow.
again, the book, the poem, A Surprise, when I mentioned about how I sat on the ground and sat on a whole pile of spiny seeds. It actually happened.
Would you like to read something for us? I mean, why don't you kind of take some of these excerpts? Would you want to read something for us?
Which one do you want me to read from?
Why don't we start with the whale of a problem itself? I mean, it's
Okay,
one of my favorites.
darling. Right.
Okay, so just
So are
one
we
second.
sharing it?
Yeah, I'll just remove one from the studio and I'll share. Just give me 2 minutes.
Sure.
Okay. I think I'm unable to share it. Would Shashwat, would you be able to share the thing? I have removed it from both the poems from the studio. Just trying to add. Unfortunately.
Shashwat is saying he's just trying.
Okay. Because it's not allowing me to do it.
Okay. In case Shashwat can't do it, maybe I can try also.
Sure. You can just share your screen with the PDF.
Yeah, but if two of us are doing it simultaneously, I don't know. If Shashwat,
No, I'm
Shashwat
I'm
can do
not
it.
doing it.
Huh. Should I try then? Uh, share screen. Oh gosh, what is happening? Oh, share screen is screen sharing. Screen sharing is easiest with two monitors. I don't know. 1 second. Just a minute.
Or maybe if you want, just read it out from your book, if you're more comfortable with
And
that.
has it come on the screen?
Yes, it's coming.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes,
So
yes,
fine. I'll
yes.
read it from here. I hope the audience can view it. Just 1 minute. I'll try to reduce the size. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So I shall read it from here. Okay, you can see it, right?
Yes.
A whale of a problem. Hurry, hurry. A whale washed ashore. All of 60 feet, perhaps even more. A young blue whale, that's for sure. Word goes around, many villagers throng. With hearts bleeding, they watch her struggling, rolling, writhing, her flukes thrashing, even while the waves come ashore, smashing. So here you see. The people put their heads together. How does one tackle this difficult matter? She has to be rescued, proclaimed their leader. We have to push her back into the sea. The tide is now high, but soon it will recede. Two fishermen agreed to give up their day's catch. Never mind the loss, the whale must go back. They could use their fishing boats, and with the help of strong ropes, they could tow the massive mammal back into the sea where she belonged. Nay, said the leader, the whale is too heavy. The ropes used to tow her will cut into her belly. said the leader's worldly wise wife. We can cut down the whale's trauma and strife, make a rope out of our saris. Wouldn't that be soft and nice? Brilliant, said the leader, and everyone agreed. All the village women offered their softest saris. The 9-yard saris were tied end to end and tethered around the whale's abdomen. Then began the tricky mission rescue, singing cheery songs and making much ado. Inch by inch, the boats pulled and heaved. After 8 long hours, she was returned to the sea. With a resounding splash, she entered the water. The sari rope untied. They watched her like a daughter. The blue whale was relieved and thanked all the people by blowing up sprays that upon them sprinkled, bidding on farewells and showering good wishes. The villagers watched teary-eyed the mighty whale vanish. Goodbye, blue whale, return to where you belong. We wish you a good life. May you be healthy and strong.
Thanks so much. It evokes so many emotions.
Uh, yeah, I
It's
suppose so.
yeah, it's really really beautiful. I think it's probably one of my favorites in this uh, book as well, and also the one which is on the florican, how the
Oh,
farmer changes the way, he's not using pesticides anymore, and the
right,
floricans come back to his. So all these kind of different scenarios, I mean, you are constantly dealing in an environment where people are changing things and also wondering why they are not getting what they want, when it comes to having
right.
crops, they're not getting the yield, but then trying to solve a problem. So I mean, all these things, it's really beautifully put in some of the poetry that you've written. Why don't you read another one for us, maybe like the one that you described, surprise?
Oh, sure. Okay, I'll just try and share that too. 1 second. Um, yeah, share screen. Just give me a minute. A surprise. Is it visible?
Yes.
You can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. A surprise. Hush, said our guide as she led us eagerly. Okay, 1 minute. Sorry, before I read, I would just like to make it, give a little bit of introduction for this poem. We were a group of friends, like-minded friends. We had gone to Rajasthan, and we were looking around, looking at the wildlife everywhere, and photographing it. And on the last day over there, our guide told us that she was going to take us for a surprise. She just wouldn't tell us what the surprise was. So this poem is about the surprise, which turned out to be an anticlimax. It's supposed to be a humorous poem. So, hush, said our guide as she led us eagerly. A special surprise we were about to see. We tiptoed slowly to a dried up well. What was the surprise? She wouldn't tell. Puckering our noses at the smell foul, we peeped inside. It was an owl. And here is the owl, actual owl. An enormous Eurasian eagle owl. At first, she seemed to be in deep sleep, but when at her we began to peep, she opened wide her yellow eyes. We were bowled over. What a surprise! The owl stared at us ever so fiercely, enough to scare away any enemy. For next to her, oh what joy! Looking like a child's soft toys, were two downy feathered babies. She was guarding them most zealously. Our hearts rejoiced at the sight. We wished to dance. It was such a delight. But we dared not show our enthusiasm. It might frighten the babies. Their mother wouldn't like it. Without a sound, I sat on the ground to get the perfect angle, just the right degree, and shoot life or pictures for the world to see. Ouch! It hurts. I didn't see. I had sat upon a pile of spiny seeds. They caught into my denim pants. I jumped as though bitten by ants. I felt as though my seat was on fire and ran in circles like a drunken sire. I pulled at the seeds, pokey and nasty. Sorry for having been so foolhardy. But I didn't see the end of those seeds. They kept poking me wherever I seated. After several washes for days together, one or two of those nasty seeds would somehow stubbornly appear on my trousers with a gleeful sneer. So, this is me with the seeds. This lesson that I learned, I share with you. Never trust wild nature. Be cautious. Please do.
Wow. So this was not just an owl surprise, but also your own surprise.
Yeah, my own surprise. Yeah, and it really happened to me. So,
Superb. Would you want to read something from Grrrs To Hisses to us? I mean, we've had two poems from the wild side, maybe something else from.
um, okay, maybe you want me to read Global Warming No More.
Yeah.
Should I? Yes? Okay. All right. I can even show on the screen the illustration. 1 minute. Can you see the illustration?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I'll just read from the book
You
itself.
can read from the book. Yeah, as
Yeah.
long as you're comfortable. No problem.
Right. Okay. So everybody knows that there is global warming and it's happening because of fossil fuels being burnt. And recently we had this COP26 summit where it was pointed out, and all the nations are trying to minimize their use of fossil fuels. So how do you explain this to children? So this is in the form of a kind of a debate between the major greenhouse gas, the culprit carbon dioxide, and planet Earth. So this is how it goes. Ha! Hollered carbon dioxide with pride. It is I who rule the planet Earth. I have conquered, made great strides, along with cousins, ozone and methane. Greenhouse gases, the three of us named. We form a blanket for all that's underneath. We have the power to trap the sun's heat. Nay, nay, earth had her say. To so much life I have given birth. This life I have always nurtured. With all that in me I can do, I will fight you, greenhouse CO2. Wait and watch. I'll let myself cool. How, may I ask, will you carry out this task? Me, the all powerful, me that no one can subdue, my ever increasing volume when they burn fossil fuels. Plants are the saving grace, replied Earth with disdain. Plants, bless them, do a lot of good. They turn you into their food. But Miss Earth, if I may say, plants are reducing by the day. To concrete structures they give way. And what with fossil fuels lavishly being burnt, you have no chance, my dear Earth. Good sense is now beginning to prevail. People are planting trees every day. The environmentalists now realize it's trees that deserve the first prize. They're ensuring that I will thrive. Everywhere they're planting seeds. Soon I will turn lush and green. The trees will spread pure air galore, and global warming will be no more. So it's trying to induce hope also into the children that you can do things to help reduce global warming.
So I had a question. I mean, especially when you look at this whole atmosphere, there's so much of doom and gloom. You have all these stories of negativity. You have, things, we are already reaching at a level where, Earth is getting warmer and warmer. There's a lot of doom stories around us. As a writer, as a person who's a nature lover, how do you really manage to keep a positive outlook and you're able to write all these things? Because sometimes I feel bogged down with whatever that is happening. So just wanted to know, what is it that really helps you?
It's a kind of a thumb rule. Glamorize everything. Everybody likes glamour. So maybe, write a poem or a song to some music or have a skit and, make it sound as interesting as possible. But as I said, glamorizing. This I've learned way back. I used to be a volunteer with Bombay Natural History Society. So we used to take schools, children to the forest for nature trails, and we used to hold programs which would actually glamorize nature, like breakfast with butterflies. So it would be a half day program where we would take them into the forest, show them the butterflies, come back into that little building which is in the middle of the forest, and then talk about butterflies, maybe do face painting, or tattoos of butterflies. So that gets them interested into the subject. So similarly, even a negative subject like this, they have to be aware naturally. But you can't just, make them fill them with all that doom and gloom. So try and make it light, fun, and make them realize that they are the ones we depend upon. So maybe they should do something. Maybe there is hope in them, so they feel important about it also.
On a
That's what
lighter note,
I.
we were talking about glamorizing something which is something, all these gloom and doom stories. I came across this poem in this book as well, which is based on a song. So, and it talks about underground critters. Would you like to sing it for us, if you just like along with the poetry, if it's okay for you? You don't need a music, you
Sure.
can just sing it the way you want to.
Okay. Yeah, it's based on the Beatles song about the octopus's garden,
Yes.
right? So yes, as you wish, I will surely sing it. I would like before that I would like to mention why I've written this poem and why particularly for the children, because all of us are giving a blind eye to this huge habitat which is underground. Everybody knows there's life in the ocean, there's life in the forest, there's life in the mountains, but nobody cares about the life underground. And it is such an important part of the ecosystem, the life underground. There are roots of trees which communicate with each other, one tree communicating with another through their roots, through the fungal mycelium which are around their roots. Then, of course, there are an n number of creatures living underground, like the moles and so many insects. So many creatures hibernate underground. But everywhere, first it used to be only in the cities, now we are expanding and covering every bit of bare earth with concrete. So we are completely disregarding the life which is there. And also by covering with concrete, we are not allowing rainwater to seep through into the ground. So how is the water table going to be replenished? How is it going to, how is the groundwater always going to be there for us, for our futures? So that is why I wrote this poem. And here is the illustration of the underground creatures. I don't know if you can see. So,
Yes, it looks
anyways,
beautiful.
I'll try to
In
sing
your
it.
own way, whichever. Yeah, you can recite it with some music, or even if it is not. I mean, I was pretty intrigued with the fact that there
Huh.
was, you could
No, but
sing it with a song.
I would love to play the music, but I don't think it will. I won't. Don't think I'll be able to share it. The
I'll
music.
just try and see if this is possible. I don't know whether you can hear it. Can you hear it?
Yeah. Can you just start from the beginning? Yeah, can you start? Yeah. I like to be under the ground where earthworms like to burrow all around. We'll meet their friends, subterraneans, crickets, Sicilians, and all the rest. I like to hide and check inside the burrows and the tunnels of this strife. I like to see inside the holes where live the sightless creatures like the moles. I'd like to watch the little crabs flinging balls of mud behind their backs. And when it rains, oh, what a sight! The crowds they hop about and sing all night. They make manure on dead leaves, they go munch munch. I love them all. I like to be underneath the soil, tiptoeing around those that hibernate. This is a pause. We'd like to shout and sing about those wondrous underground creatures, all of them. Oh, what joy for every girl and boy, knowing they're happy and they're safe. We are extremely happy, you and me, to know about those fascinating beings. So come along, let's spread the word, the beauty of these creatures in our earth. The beauty of these creatures in our earth. Come along, just let us spread the word. So
Thank you.
that was it.
That was awesome.
In fact, when we were talking about glamorizing, I would also like to mention that we used to also do puppet shows based on the theme. Like if it was about trees, then Toast to Trees was a program, and we used to do puppet shows about those. So I was used to writing those scripts. So in many of my books, I've written play scripts about these creatures, just to glamorize and make things interesting.
Yeah, so much fun singing, I suppose. So, very curious to know one thing. I mean, you are a Parsi, and in general, if you look at a lot of these people who are from this community, they seem to have, a general awareness about the environment, perhaps much more than others. I don't know, but
I'm
there's
not sure
the
about
you're not
that.
sure. Okay.
No, but then, okay, I live in a colony which is fairly green. I must admit that. It's called the Andhra Parsi colony.
Okay.
And in fact, it was established by a very benevolent person, Manchiji Joshi, more than 100 years ago.
Okay.
And when he established, he built cottages. Every cottage had a garden, and he planted avenues of the particular species of trees on the different roads. So at least, everybody who comes here says, wow, this is so green and so cool. We're struggling now, in the modern times to maintain it. But of course, it's giving way to urbanization also.
So I presume a lot of your poems, stories actually originated from the Dadar Parsi colony, if I'm not
No, I
mistaken.
wasn't born over here. It
Okay,
was
no, but
after I got married, I came here.
the general
Yeah.
environment, and the kind of probably some of the urban wildlife that you came across, or the interactions of certain kinds of things. Did
Um,
your space where you stay have a role to play in
yes,
some
it
of
did.
this? It did.
Right. Chandrima, I strongly believe everyone has in them a sense of biophilia. When children are born, small toddlers, you will see they're not frightened of insects, or they will not hesitate to pat a puppy dog. The mother may be scared. So, as the child grows up, a particular mindset is instilled into them by the adults around. So I was fortunate in that sense, although when I was not born in Dadapasi colony, it was elsewhere where it wasn't so green anyway. But my mother was very fond of nature. She used to pot around on her balcony. There were so many pots, and we used to. So all that kind of sense entered into me. You can say the love for nature. I used to be thrilled, and then the biggest upheaval in my life came when I started, just before I started writing, my journey as an author. That was a time when I had more time on my hands. My children were settled, so I became a more active member of the NHS. I even did courses in entomology and ornithology and biodiversity and such courses with them. And then there were a lot of like-minded people, so we used to go for walks out in the wild, nature walks. And of course, many of them were guided ones, but many of them we used to go on our own with little guidebooks, field books in our hands, and learn about the trees we came across, discover new things, turn every leaf, turn every stone. So that again revived all the interest in nature in me, and that has been my forte ever since. To spread the word about nature, to write about nature, and to do all my activities around nature.
Fabulous. So one very interesting thing that I saw was, you also published about books where children are protagonists. So I found that a brilliant idea. I mean, what really made you think, putting them across in the forefront? What was it that was going on in your mind when you were thinking about when you're thinking about these book series where you personalize these book series with kids as protagonists?
Um, it just came naturally, I think, because I knew I was writing for children, and they had to be the heroes of the story. But it's not always the child that has been the protagonist. Sometimes my books are very anthropomorphized, and some of them, like it may be the story of some animals where the animal is a protagonist, or an ant, queen ant may be a protagonist, or a worker ant rather. So it varies, you know, it
Okay.
does, right? Even the trees, they talk to each other.
Right. So, for a lot of these poems that you've recited to us, and as I said, you've brought in very concepts of the aspects of empathy, human-animal interactions, stories of doom, whatever. However, within that gloom doom, there are stories, there are poetry, which is also about the good things and other smaller interactions between your environment. How do children perceive some of these aspects when they are a part of your clubs? What has been their reaction to some of the things that you have conveyed to them?
I feel I feel my goal is achieved when they tell me that they really enjoyed my books, and they do ask me so many questions. It's sort of it's like a little seed sown into them, which suddenly sprouts into a plant. For example, sometime back in my nature club, we did a session on fungi,
Okay.
mushrooms and fungi. And this is something people hardly, talk about. Mushrooms they see in the monsoons, but otherwise the rest of the year you don't see, and you don't know about the various kinds of fungi. So when after doing that session, there were, the children kept sending me messages. One little child said, I'm in Nagpur and there are so many mushrooms. and my grandfather is going to clean the garden. I hope he doesn't get rid of those mushrooms. Things like that. They were really interested, and they started taking pictures of various kinds of fungi, and they cooked different recipes with the mushrooms, and they showed me the pictures of that, and told, we discussed the recipes. So it became a very interesting topic, from a dead topic into a, but similarly, we bring out other issues also. The last time I did climate change, in fact, with them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So would you like to give us, the audience, maybe a little tips and tricks when it comes to, writing some of the stuff, especially children? Like, what if there are kids who are interested in, maybe writing something about the environment? What kind of advice would you like to give them?
If you're doing nature writing, even if it is fiction, it has, at least in my case, it is always based on true facts. So in my stories, there may be characters, the whole plot may be a fictional plot, but the facts around which they are woven have to be true, so that the child does not get misguided. That I make sure of. That is important, because sometime or the other, if somebody reads a book and some child may say, but this is not true, this is not what really I see, you are flabbergasted. So we have to be sure that whatever you write about is based on true facts. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you can think of some interesting ideas, interesting poems. Anthropomorphizing is something which comes to me very often and makes it interesting for the children too. And yes, if you put your heart and soul into your writing, then of course there's nothing like that. You have to put your heart and soul into your writing.
Yeah,
And
I
be
think that goes
patient.
for everything in life, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Right.
Yeah, it was so wonderful actually having this conversation with you. And I think maybe we should open the floor for questions. There may be some comments or questions coming in. Shashwat, would you like to come in right now? Shashwat, can you
Uh,
hear us?
Tips and tricks. I see here in the chat box about
Okay,
the
there is
clubs.
a comment by there's a
Huh.
comment by Vijeta. She's asked, how much time did it take you to write books like these? And does it pay, as in, can writing on nature be a career?
It can be a career, but you can't earn your bread and butter by writing. I think any author, except of course the very, very, very successful authors like J.K. Rowling, those are different authors altogether. But we do it for the satisfaction. We do it for spreading the word. So, and it makes you feel good. It's a feel good kind of thing, like you have the hormones in you which make you feel good. Writing also makes you feel good. That's what I feel. But if you want to make it as a career, you can. It's wonderful to know so many authors and to see your books in the stores. But I think side by side, you can have another job also. Like I conduct creative writing classes also. And yeah, that's it.
Uh, do you want to talk about your creative writing classes a bit? Maybe there's a question by Dinesh Chaturvedi. Are these books available on other languages like Hindi and Marathi?
Some of my books have been translated. My book on mangroves, which was published by Godrej, it has been translated into Marathi, and they're planning to translate it into 11 languages altogether. So they're going to go around. Even my book on Ishan's Treasures, which is about the marine life along the sea coast of Mumbai, that has also been translated into Marathi. There are two books for very small children, which are about to come out in January, which are also translated in Hindi. Once they come out, they will be available in English and Hindi. So
Okay.
now this is the important thing. People realize that our regional languages are also important, and books can have a greater reach if they're in different languages. Of course, English is definitely there, but if you want to go into the interiors, into the remote places, it's good to have them translated.
Of course. So tell me one thing. Okay, there's one more question here. Uh, by Shubhya Dankute. How to write an autobiography on childhood turning point from movie or story?
On childhood turning point from movie or story. From
Basically,
the
I
point
think maybe she wants some kind of advice onto how to initiate perhaps writing something about your childhood
and
or a
make it into
story.
a movie, is it? Oh, yeah. So, first of all, to get ideas for anything at all, one has to do a lot of reading. And you do a lot of reading in the genre which you are interested in. Like, for example, I do a lot of reading about nature. And nowadays, of course, also you get to see a lot of reference work you do on the net also. But definitely, a lot of reading is required, a lot of research is required, and then it becomes easier because once you have your facts ready, then you can weave the stories definitely, and you can have your story in mind right from the start, or sometimes I just have the beginning of the story and I just let the flow come as I write. It happens, and the ending has to be very important. That's what I always advise, because you reach the end of your story and you're in a great hurry to just finish it and send it to the publisher, but that's not true. You have to work on your conclusion with a lot of care so that the reader will have it in his mind, even after closing the book, whatever he's read. The conclusion should be good enough for them to, give a big sigh of relief and say, wow, this was great, or something like that.
So tell me one thing. Has any of your books ever been able to get to say like a policy level decision? Like I remember you just mentioned the book about mangroves, which was published by Godrej. Has
Huh.
there been any kind of policy level changes that have taken place,
No,
even from
see,
say like very, even from children's
I,
book when you're trying to express it, it's also something which it is easier for layman to understand. It's not just for
correct.
children. But has there been any kind of
You know,
kind of
I would like to write books which may help to change the policy, but publishers are very, very apprehensive about publishing such books. They don't want to get into hot waters. So, in fact, this book, Ishan's Treasures, which was about the marine life of Mumbai, the coast of Mumbai, I wrote it, with the intent that people will have a second thought about the coastal road which is coming up. But then the Mangrove Foundation of Maharashtra, who published it, in fact, they should know better about the policies. I was advised by them not to include that bit about the story and change it. So I had to remove that part altogether. Where Ishan starts a movement and tries to, makes a sort of begins a campaign against any construction work at the seacoast. That should not be there.
Hmm. Truth is always difficult to digest.
Yeah, I know. But as long as the child is sensitized, and then the rest comes automatically, they see for themselves, they realize for themselves also. You know.
Yeah. So,
They need to know about the beauty around. Yeah.
right. Thanks so much, Katie. Thank you.
Most
So,
Yeah,
welcome.
over to you,
Thank you for
Shashwat.
this.
thanks so much, Katie. Thanks so much, Chandrima. It was a very, heartening session, very much insightful also, and most importantly, it was interesting. I think so. This is the first time we ever had someone on the session itself singing a song for us, and that to nature. So I hope you write so many songs and they get sung all along. We have a wide audience of students and everyone, and I'm sure they will be taking a lot of learnings from these things. Nature writing per se. While the genre, as an author, you have been talking about the various aspects of it. At the end, the importance is that nature is something that we all should be caring about, and all should be sensitized about. And whatever you're doing is a great, in your little bit, you're doing a great service to this whole movement itself. So, thank you so much, Katie. I hope you enjoyed the session with us, and we
Thoroughly.
connect a
Yes,
lot more.
thank you so much. Thank you. And I hope my audience also gets charged into writing about nature in whichever form, poetry or prose or songs or whatever.
Yeah, and thank you, Chandrima, for yet again
Thanks,
for hosting
Shashwat.
us, and for holding this through all this thing, and making Katie read her poems and singing the songs. So, thank you so much for this.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much,
Chandrima.
Shashwat. Thank
To
you,
all our
Katie.
No,
Thanks
viewers,
a
why?
lot.
Okay.
yes, sir. Yes, Katie, please go ahead.
No, I was just saying Chandrima was very kind with her questions. She didn't ask me any difficult questions.
No, so that you are such a wonderful person. I doubt there would be any difficult question that can be posed to you. So,
Okay.
so
Right.
on that note, I take leave from both of you, and to all our viewers. We'll meet next time in next edition of Nature Writing for Children. That will be on December 10th. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye to everyone. Have a great evening. Bye.
Bye.
Yes. Bye.